calling the meeting back to order after the lunch break. And it looks like going back to the agenda for right now, we will be hearing from the Deputy Director.
Okay, my report is in the ClickUp agenda, so I will not just read that because it's your reading pleasure, but I would like to touch on two things, which is also in the second one. Everything and anything COVID has been what's been going on for the last several months. We are working right now, since we started the electronic record process the end of March, now have survived several score days and continued rolling score days. We are streamlining our processes. I see progress. Their feet are on the ground. Thank you, David Nall, for your invaluable assistance with that and ongoing assistance with that. We are streamlining our report system so that we can send this out with training from David Nall to the board members, so we get a better response back. That you understand, that it's cleaner with what we have seen and how we have critiqued the applications, and we are hoping that that process will benefit everybody concerned and also for the applicant. We are also, and thanks to Cindy Kiley for being invaluable in this on an ongoing basis, is because we started out 100% paper and now we are electronic. We are still in the middle of a transition. Some applications were submitted before the end of March. So Cindy and I are working together. We started going through all of the foreign educated, those that are waiting on Social Security numbers, foreign educated exams, and foreign educated endorsements, to be sure that we have not had anybody fall through the cracks, that we can close the loop on either old applications and do record retention with those, or reach back to the applicants and find out where they are in their status. Next, we're going to move to the endorsements. The exam applicants, it is easier to keep up with them because you have a lot of information from the Federation that has timelines and deadlines. So it's always on your radar screen. We do not want any of the endorsement candidates to slip off of our radar screen and not be processed in a timely manner. I still do believe that we did take a hit on the customer satisfaction because people were understandably anxious about getting limited seats at Prometric centers as they continue to be, because again, it may be a Prometric center wants to open, but the strip mall that they're in is not open and they are still at limited capacity, and that changes as the coronavirus goes up and down and has its peaks. So we appreciate the patience of the board in working with us. I am very impressed with the group. Yes, we've made mistakes and we are working to improve those. I'll be touching base and hopefully we'll be making a motion about the alternate approval pathway with temporary rule changes in a few minutes, which will then again, I think you will see a positive benefit once we initiate that and get comfortable with that process. Also, the third thing on the agenda is the newsletter. We sent out a survey, got a couple of responses back. I'm sure that a lot of you are very great at writing articles or submitting suggestions or submitting ideas of what you would like to see changed, updated, revised, deleted. As we continue to modernize the office, an ultimate goal is that we have newsletters on a more regular basis. At this point in time, we're looking forward to having the newsletter 2020 done on time. So please do not hesitate to send your ideas for topics that you think or scope of practice issues that you've heard about. We will go back and pull some from board minutes, but ideas are a good thing because it could we would find maybe someone that could really write on a topic, or we can address it. Or again, like I said, we are modernizing everything, and the newsletter is now coming up on the radar screen. Any questions?
I'd like to make one addition about renewals. Did you mention the e-checks? I had to step out for a second.
No, I have not mentioned renewals.
Okay. So license renewal 2021 is coming up, and the highlights of that are you will see new MDS questions, new minimum data set questions that are going to substitute for the former questions that licensees answer to be sent to the SHEP Center for Workforce Data Collection. And we're attempting to provide e-checks in place of paper checks this year. So that's being programmed into the renewal right now. And knock on some wood that ends up working well to minimize if staff is going to be out of the office, we don't have as many people to process all of this stuff, and it can be done through electronic processes. And so those are the updates for that process for this year. Shall we go on to Prometric? Would that be okay, Teresa?
Yes.
Okay. So because they were not able to provide us a report during the last quarter from January through March, we have two Prometric reports, which are January through March of 2020 and March through June. Let's just summarize this by saying that the satisfaction rating in the earlier quarter was 87%. In the latter quarter, it was 83%. I think Debbie's already addressed the reasons why. You know, I think we just need to say one word, and that's COVID. And I expect that it will maybe be about the same for the coming quarters, because fixed date testing hasn't resumed yet. They're still doing this rolling window, and it just is what it is. But that report is there. If anybody would like to address anything in that, I can answer questions, or we can discuss it.
Do we have a history of getting much higher marks in those categories?
Yes, we do. Always over 90s, in the 90s, always.
Okay.
You know, I think that, especially initially when we went to being at home, that transition and people not being able to, you know, have their phone call picked up within a second, you know, resulted in, I mean, they were already panicking, but it really resulted in panic. That one didn't go down as much, only because January and February basically operated as normal. It was then March that wasn't. And then that's why I think you see the further decline beyond from that till now. And because that moment in time is the biggest lead up to the biggest, the most popular exam taking time, that's when, you know, there was even more panic, because trying to get a seat was really challenging. And the Federation has a webinar on that you could even view, about the challenges that they experienced in addition to Prometric. So this is following right along with what nationally is happening to everyone. So I don't think we have to worry long term about this continuing. And if it does, then we need to be doing something differently and digging a little deeper.
And when talking to the schools, they too were in the same boat, because clinicals were being canceled, courses were being changed, graduation dates were being changed. People, you know, had already scheduled to have fellowships and residencies, and all of that was in an uproar. And so we felt for all systems and the actions that were taken to try to have all these rolling score days and get the people licensed.
I have a question about, I don't know if it's in on these attachments, but on the earlier attachments that showed the number of practicing PTs, it also had a category that said exam failures, and it looked like it was 500, and I wanted to see if that's true.
That is
if I'm reading.
Yeah, excellent question.
Let me see.
That may be a total over time.
I mean, I'll pull it up. Hold on. I'll pull it up from today.
Okay.
I've got the total failures is 519.
Yeah.
Is that this year, Debbie, or is it over time?
Let me confer with Greg and get a confirmation on that.
Yeah.
I will Discord him and find out.
I don't know that it was this year, Jamie, and the reason why I say that is because when you dig down into the school reports, which is the section that we're going to get to in a few minutes, the overall pass rates are much higher this
I
year.
didn't think it made sense, so I thought I was misreading something because, yeah, when you look at the overall test takers, it's not that much more than that. It would be like a half, yeah, 50%.
Yeah, that report, maybe we do need to have some tweaking done to that report, but yeah, so I wouldn't, Debbie's going to validate it, but I think.
I've just emailed him.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So are we ready to move on to the rules, Debbie?
Yes. Let me see where we are. Okay. Sure we are. Okay. Today it is our hope. We have started or continuing the temporary rules process. And today we are hoping that in order to, as a result of the governor's executive order 116, we implemented the temporary rule process to help expedite the process to licensure for applicants, because we do feel like that they are needed in the public sector, especially as now we learn more and more about people that have long-term implications from COVID and rehabilitation issues. So today you were presented with the rules initially, and today we are hoping that you will make a motion to amend these temporary rules so that they can be submitted to the Rules Review Commission as soon as you make the motion, if you agree to do that.
Motion that the board approve this amend temporary rules.
Second by David.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries, Debbie.
I love it. Thank you. I was, when I quit talking, I will make sure that the Rules Review Commission gets these this afternoon. Regarding the Rules Subcommittee, we were initially, up until about 2 days ago, going to start the permanent rules process for the temporary rules. Had a timeline, et cetera, in place, but we have since clarified, since even our rules consultant has not done the temporary rules process but once, and we've never done it, that we have to wait and see if the RRC approves the rules. Once they're approved and go into effect, that's when we can start the permanent rule process, which will probably be a blessing, because by then we may want to be looking at other rules that might need to be changed as part of some permanent rule change processes. So we will
Maybe
be,
we'll off COVID by then.
we hope, but we will be getting back in touch with the rules subcommittee as soon as we've learned the outcome of the temporary rule process.
And then TOEFL.
That was just an update for the board. We've posted new information on the website regarding the TOEFL. The board had already approved this and we changed the rules, but we needed to update the website with what the standard was actually going to be, which is the total score remains the same. However, the Federation's current policy was voted on July 1st, 2016, and is as follows: that TOEFL scores for both PT and PTAs need to be obtained in one sitting and individually reviewed. So reading has to be a 22, listening 21, speaking 24, writing 22, and the total score needs to be at least 89. And I think already we have an example of the fact that someone did not pass their TOEFL. She happened to send in a TOEFL after she had already had the medium of English instruction approved, and she didn't pass the TOEFL. So we've already had, and there's another example where kind of the reverse happened, where we were able to see that what previously we were approving as part of what the board has allowed the executive director to approve for them. When I talked to the FCCPT, Jamie Nolan, she's the either interim or the new executive director of FCCPT, she said that if we are basing English proficiency on what is in the credentials review, that is not a measure of what someone is actually able to speak and understand. And so this rule is way better, and we actually have a standard for it, and now that's published. And it was a change, so we're getting lots of questions about it, but I think this really demonstrates effective regulation, and that there is a standard across the board that applicants that are not trained in English need to rise to the level of. And not only that, I think it's been demonstrated that with these scores, people tend to do better on the exam. Because the fail rate on the national exam is higher for foreign educated individuals, and not because they don't know the material, it's just that it's because it's in English. And so you want to give everybody the best ability to be successful that you can, and I think these standards do that. So that's just an update.
It's also helping. We have, it's a learning curve because we have people that have been in the United States for a number of years are having some pushback on that. But when we think about it from a public protection standpoint, they may be able to read well, but they may not be able to communicate verbally to a patient. So we think that this is a real rise in public protection and making sure that the public is safe. I have an update for Greg. He says the exam fails is an all-time.
Good. Okay. Moving on right along.
So schools, update about pass rates for schools and other related items. If you take a look at the attachments, or if you've taken a look at the attachments, when I look at, oh my goodness, that's the 2019 report, and I need the 2020 report. The 2020 report is significantly improved. These are slightly off, so I'm going to apologize for that. Instead of clicking around, all of the PT schools that have people in the 2020 cohort that have taken the exam, all the PT schools are above 96% total. So that's an improvement. We're hovering around the national average for exam passage on the first time pass rate. And the PTA schools, all of them are even up of the 2020 cohort. And we've had some schools that have been down, in the low 60s or 70s. And right now, the lowest one is Martin at 75% passage on the first time pass rate. But more of them are 80s, 90s, and at least 5 of them at 100% pass rate. So I think there's been an improvement, and I don't know whether COVID has anything to do with this, but if you have to wait a little bit longer to pass the test, you have more time to study, and so that's not, those statistics are not bad. One thing I will say, so the graduation year of 2019, most likely, most of the people have at least taken the exam from the graduating cohort of 2019 by now. And the scores here are, while we're still a little bit above the national average for the PT programs, these are a bit lower than what I think we're used to seeing. Ultimately, there's still a number of programs where they get 100% of their students that pass, but typically that's more common in the first round. I can't speak to whether the exam has changed that much recently. They're adding new video exam questions, so maybe that's got something to do with it. What I would like to point out is South College here and the 59%. That's they're still really struggling. And I would make if the board would direct me to, I'd be glad to send them one of our letters that just says, we're looking, how can we help?
Yes, please send that letter.
Yeah, okay.
I also had a question, Kathy, on the ultimate pass rates, I noticed up in the PT programs that Winston-Salem and Elon and Campbell, it's the same number across from initial pass rate to the ultimate pass rate.
Mm.
Can you explain that?
Well, it's entirely possible. I don't know this to be 100% fact, but they're the person who, or the, because it's not 100% either, not 100% of their students took it. And
Or the date of graduation.
I'm sorry, Debbie?
The date of graduation, like Campbell and let's see, Winston-Salem State, they graduate in December. So we may not have as many statistics on them.
Okay.
And the other aspect to it is somebody may not choose to retake the exam right away. And so, you know, it may be that we just don't have full information for their program.
Well, and it's old information because these numbers are from Monday, February 17th. So it hasn't, we haven't updated from then. If they graduated in December, they
you
may
know
not
what?
have a chance to
This is the wrong document, so I'll apologize for that. I do have all of the new ones, and 2019, when I look at the 2019 data, they are there are 6 programs, 5 programs with 100% PTs, 3 at 97, and 1 at 95. So they are eventually passing. I think there are a couple programs that must have somebody that hasn't completely taken the exam yet and passed it. And they just don't, until they do that, you know, sometimes they never end up being 100%. And I can't fully explain that. I will say though, that South College is still in the 59% in the right document. So I'll be glad to send that letter. We attached the new program or the school addresses. We do have 2 programs that have new program directors. One is Winston-Salem State, one is Campbell. We've reached out to both of those individuals and had more conversation with Winston-Salem than with Campbell, but we have communicated with both of them. The exam dates, you're not going to see a different document here, but you know, this does not represent accurately the exam dates that are happening now because they're still being spread over a larger window. I think what they're calling them rolling, or I don't know what they're calling them, windows of exams. So, you know, you may be asked to review things, you know, at times that don't completely concur with this schedule. And I imagine it's going to be like this for a while. As far as communication goes, there is a lot. Debbie's doing a lot with different program directors or their designees. And we anticipate that another round of us sending blast emails to all the programs when we move to the alternate approval pathway will happen. We are getting some training soon on what we have to do as a board staff to implement AAP, but we're waiting until the Rules Review Commission approves the rules.
Okay.
All right.
Ethics Commission.
So the Ethics Commission has a new website, and the website is here. So if you ever need to go to the website for any reason, you can click on the links in the ClickUp. You can just go back to the ClickUp, or you can Google it. But they do have a new website. And this new website has the way to do the SEI, your annual requirement on the 15th of April when that's due. You can click on the link and do it online. It has how to do ethics education, either live or online. It has the compliance report. So you can go there yourself and look at your compliance report or look at the compliance report for the PT board and determine, when's my next time to take the online or live training. Now, Rosa has just joined us. She has 6 months to complete her first ethics online training. And she's got until November to do that. So you can see that's got a little space there. But otherwise, it looks to me like we're pretty up to date. Crystal's got one coming up in October. But this new website, I guess it's kind of their new and improved website. So for all things ethics, head to these links. Okay.
I couldn't get that link to work.
I'm sorry.
Just FYI, I couldn't get the link in ClickUp. I couldn't make that work.
Wow.
Me either.
Oh, good. Neither can I. I pulled this directly off of the email that they sent me. So I will have to get back to you on that. I will send out something. I believe I also forwarded everyone there was a sort of a newsletter or announcement type thing that they sent out earlier in the year, and I forwarded that to everyone. I will find that and I'll re-forward that to everyone because that includes the same information and it may be more helpful to you as a reference. Then you can save it where you want it.
The link I've got is working, but there's a HTTPS in front of it. So it might be because it's a secure site that it's not popping up.
Okay. Well, either way, I can still send that out again. It never hurts because that's something that we have to comply with all the time. And, you can never have too many reminders about that stuff.
That's right.
Okay.
And you said Crystal's is due in October 10th.
Yes.
Are you going to notify her of that, or do I need to do that?
Well, so the way that I notify board members is the fact that we do it once a quarter. I publish this once a quarter in the board meeting. These are accessible to anybody, anytime. You can reference it anytime. What I haven't done, and I can do if that's what you'd like me to do, is when someone's is coming up, I can remind them. I can provide that reminder. I haven't historically.
Okay. Well, I'll be talking to Crystal, so I'll just remind her when I talk with her. Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We did not have any questions, scope of practice questions submitted to the June meeting, so we don't have any attachments to review there. PT Compact, all of this was in ClickUp for you. We submitted a few comments to their request for comments during the public comment period for their rules. Rules, bylaws, and policies and procedures are going to be updated at the annual meeting. Compact privileges, we have, for our first full year, had 85 privileges to North Carolina for a total of $4,250. But you compare that to maybe an endorsement income, it's definitely different. So, it's $50 versus, the 150. So, but so far 85 is not an inordinate amount of compact privileges, but we still expect that to grow over time. I wanted to just affirm with the board that they would like me to continue as the delegate. In a way, it's sort of I need to remain the delegate in order to fulfill my duties as chair of the Compact Commission. But unless someone has any objections, I will continue to do that at least until the end of my term. As
When
chair,
is the end of your term as chair?
I have another year.
Okay, I think you've got full support by this board to continue representing the compact licensure task force and representing North Carolina jurisdiction. Thank you.
Thank you. I will not be involved in the elections, but since elections are coming up, it was a good time that we review this with the board. The last thing is about our compliance with the commission requirements. And because we are trying to protect everyone's social security numbers as the compact commission, it was felt by a lot of the jurisdictions early on that we have another unique identifier. That identifier is the FSBPT ID, because everybody has to have one in order to take the exam. Well, our board completed this first step, but we have another step or two to take. Greg and I are meeting with the compact administrator, I believe it's next week or the week after, to determine how many more steps we have to take to be in 100% compliance. But I will say a little bit in our defense that we were one of the first people to push for FSBPT ID, thought we'd done everything we were supposed to, and the procedures just hadn't been established for the next steps. It's possible that we missed some communication along the way, or a meeting or something, but anyway, this isn't going to be a hard thing. It just is something that has to be done. It has to be added to our database and our online application. And that way we can stop sending any information that relates to social security numbers anywhere.
It's about time, isn't it, that they enact
Yeah,
all this nationwide?
Yeah, and you have to switch to the FSBPT ID within 2 years of issuing privileges. Well, we're at year 1. So I've gotten the impression that they believe that we're out of compliance. But now that I've just rethought that, I believed it was you had to be issuing privileges, but that could also be a misunderstanding on my part. And I don't think they're doing sanctions against us or anything. It's just more that reminding that we need to accomplish that. Couple of sections that we've had, we typically have as standing items at our meeting. There isn't anything to communicate, so we're leaving those blank this time. And we're moving on to the reports to the state. These are not things that are unusual. These are all things that I think we've completed before. One thing that is different is this boards and commissions profile sheet. And I did have to complete that. I had to answer questions like how many males, how many females, how many people were appointed in X time, how many people had failed to attend meetings and that sort of thing. And so it was a survey of questions that I had to answer with very factual information that I had, the minutes and other things to support, but that was new. And then the one at the bottom, we received a request from the Office of Boards and Commission to send out a blast email about completing the US Census. Wow. And we did get a public comment back about that, which I have included in here. It was someone who did not think that was something that we ought to be doing. So, but it's public record. So that was the only comment that we got about sending that thing out, the notification out. But completing the census is important for people to be able to access their benefits and have things appropriately allocated. So I think when the governor's office asks you to do something, we complied. In terms of the board technology update, I've included a very short summary of something that Greg has put together for the board. Probably a more in-depth piece of information is in the goals and priorities with what IT is working on. Just a word about Suba. Suba has joined us earlier this year, and she completed work on the MDS. So in here, he's noted that. We tested it, Debbie and I tested it, and it seemed to be working well. Now they're working on e-checks. David Nall is working diligently with the licensing staff on our transition into document management and SharePoint. And then they're also, David and Greg have installed some devices that are working on improvements to the backups that we have, and trying to automate those so that, you know, nobody has to physically be here. It's done automatically. And then some information is stored in the cloud so that it's a backup for a backup, which is good to have.
Kathy,
Yes.
would you tell me what MDS means? I can only think of this nursing home MDS.
I know, that's right. I really should refer to it as the physical therapy minimum data set.
Okay.
It's a nationally approved standard of data items that relate to the physical therapy workforce. So where are you working? How much are you working? How long do you anticipate working? So that in theory, this aggregate data can be matched up with where there are not enough therapists for patients that need help, and maybe even to the point where if you've got specialty abilities or skill sets, that can be matched to what's needed in a certain location. I don't think the actual use of the data has advanced that far, because not all jurisdictions even collect it at all. You know, but we're switching over from our former data set to this data set to be a part of what everybody nationally is collecting. So we're all collecting the same thing. Okay. Where are we? I think we're at scope of practice questions that have been submitted to the board. And Debbie Reagan will take that away.
Yes, we have a couple of them, and I apologize. I now have the research that I had done is in ClickUp now, but I'm going to verbally give a report. The first one is regarding the scope of practice, PTA practice for a PTA to assess heart sounds in the home health setting. So we sent this out to all of the North Carolina physical therapist assistant schools, and universally, most of them said they discuss it, but it is not a competency skill. So then I went to, the APTA has an advanced competency in home health, which I thought was appropriate for the question that was being asked. And one of the mandatory courses that they have them take is cardiopulmonary assessment for the home health PTA. When you read down into the description, however, it says it provides a review of each vital sign, and then it helps them identify red flag warning signs. So in this, it appeared it was more on the level of, you know, your pulse, your respiration, pulse ox, blood pressure, as opposed to getting into true auscultation of heart sounds. So that was the response I got from the school practices that are currently teaching. So it is determining today whether we consider it appropriate for the scope of practice of a PTA to assess heart sounds in the home health setting.
And when they said assess heart sounds, to me, that means auscultations and, you know, a lot more complex other than, yes, I hear a heartbeat.
Right.
So right. We're saying no, a PTA cannot assess heart sounds.
They're not being taught that.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's a very hard skill to maintain and acquire, even after years of practice.
I think we were having a little difficulty hearing. Was that Dr. Garcia?
Yeah, I was just saying that that's a very hard to acquire even after years of practice. I think just listening to the different types of murmurs, rubs, and gallops that you assess. If you're going to put the word assessed, and that can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people.
So what I'm hearing is that, are you making a recommendation for a motion that not be considered a part of the PTA scope of practice?
This is David. I would certainly agree with that.
Okay.
And I'll second that. Yeah.
And I would agree with Dr. Garcia.
Do we need to
Who-
take a vote
Who
on
made the
that?
motion? Who made the motion? Excuse me.
David?
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion about whether or not a PT assistant should be allowed to analyze heart sounds in the home health setting?
It's just a shame that neither of our PTAs are here today to give their perspective.
All right. Okay, we'll have a vote. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anybody abstaining? No, the motion carries. Are you going to put this in the form of a position paper, or how do you communicate this decision, Kathy?
This is a scope of practice question that is answered just like I typically answer other questions. But when the board has never specifically addressed something before, I've got to bring it to the board and then I answer it just like I would answer any other question. I think we've also formed a habit where after each board meeting, we pull out the scope of practice questions and post them on the page where we also have the board minutes so that people can see those more easily.
We also will be posting them. We pull out some of the scope of practice questions to include in the newsletter for this fall.
Good, good.
So the next question, Debbie?
The next question is, here's the question. We received a question from a licensee asking if physical therapist assistants can perform manual lumbar spine traction using a mobilization belt as part of their scope of practice. Again, we sent these out to all of the schools. Several of the schools, Central Piedmont says we do not teach lumbar spine traction. South College does not teach it. Craven Community College discusses it and shows and instructs, but again, if they're going to be doing that level of mobilization, they consider it a skilled treatment requiring assessment. I did, again, I reached out to the APTA orthopedic
Section?
group. Thank you. I knew that word was there somewhere. And got a very firm response from them that they stand firm with the APTA on those interventions that are exclusively performed by the physical therapist. They said it's unfortunate that our rule allows the PTA to perform manual cervical traction. I did find courses that were being done that PTAs are allowed to attend on core stabilization, mobilization, mobilization with movement, and laser guided feedback for core stabilization that did market also to physical therapist assistants.
But primarily you found that it wasn't being taught, so it doesn't really meet the rule standard, right?
That is correct.
Wow, I'm surprised because, I mean, I've got a PT assistant in my practice who, granted, has been with me for 23 years, and she does manual lumbar traction using a mobilization belt. Because if I'm the PT and it's in my plan of care and I can vouch for her competency as her supervisor, and she's done this many times, then why would we not allow it?
If I recall some years back, and probably 10 or 15, the discussion came up regarding PTAs and any type of spinal mobilization, and the opinion was no.
Yeah,
And it's not manipulation, it's just traction.
I remember as far as mobilization of extremities being acceptable, but still seem to recall something about the spine being excluded.
I would have to go back and find it, but I remember I was working for the board and I heard the conversation when cervical traction was approved. but I don't remember the rationale, and I would have to go look that up for you, but I don't think I can do it right now. But I think we've been very consistent about using the rule that says education, training, and routinely performed in practice. And that's what we've been using as the standard. And it may be that, you know, we say not now or not yet, or, you know, the board needs to make a determination about where the line is.
Or perhaps, Kathy, at this time, it's not considered to be within scope or something to that degree.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Dean McCall said from Martin Community College, mechanical and manual traction is within the scope of PTA, commensurate with education and training and supervised by the PT. It's just the use of the mobilization belt that we're restricting, or is it all mechanical and manual lumbar traction?
Can you keep reading his statement? On Martin Community College?
Okay, well, it says, we teach both mechanical and manual lumbar traction using gait belts, probably because they haven't spent the money to buy mobilization belts. At the same time, we in fact have specific lengthy discussion with students about manual traction as a precursor to spinal traction, testing or trialing patient for tolerance of mechanical traction or to offer a lower grade traction force. We outline specifically and repeatedly that spinal mobilization is not within the PTA scope of practice and lies within the purview of the PT. Mechanical and manual, so spinal mobilization is not within the PTA scope of practice and lies within the purview of the PT. Mechanical and manual traction is within the scope, commensurate with education and training and supervised. So again, the question that was posed was a licensee asking if PT assistants can perform manual lumbar spine traction, not lumbar spine mobilization.
I think I have a question for David Gadd.
Yes.
David, so, you know, the rule that we stand by, you know, in assessing these things has been education, training, and routinely performed in practice.
Right.
And so it appears to me that the majority of the programs are not necessarily offering this. So they definitely don't tick that box. However, if you talk about in like the case of Teresa's employee, where someone has received that training in practice and it's supervised by a PT, you know, do you consider that to be sufficient at ticking the box? Because we could say it's not routinely performed in educational programs and only activities that are the PT knows are commensurate with the training.
Right.
It feels a little bit like splitting hairs to me if you try to cut it down the middle.
Mm-hmm. So the statute says evaluation and treatment of patients may involve physical measures, methods, or procedures as are found commensurate with physical therapy, education, and training, and generally or specifically authorized by regulations of the board. So we may need, I mean, if PTAs are being trained, I don't necessarily think that the the requirement of the statute is trained by a school. I mean, I think it could be on the job type training. I mean, it doesn't specify one way or the other. So I hate to give you such a gray answer, but it's not completely clear to me. We may need to do some more digging to find out if this is being, if PTAs are being trained in this way and then performing this, on a broad spectrum.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree with that we need more information because we don't have enough information to make a good decision at this point. We clearly are aware now that there are some places where it is being utilized based upon that on-the-job training and supervision. But I think we're going to need a little more information.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of a response?
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I think it's also a lot like instrument-assisted soft tissue massage. So you can have a Graston trained or Graston certified PT, and the PT is the one doing the evaluation and some of the treatments, and identify where a muscle has restriction and could benefit from instrument-assisted soft tissue massage, and teaches the PT assistant a very specific technique to do with this patient. So the PT assistant didn't learn instrument-assisted soft tissue massage in school, but they're learning it on the job from a certified Graston therapist. And this is what I want you to do with this muscle, with this tool. I think that's very similar. And there's got to be a lot of that going on out there.
I see a problem though when they take that from one clinic to another and are not working under the same trained PT and are doing these techniques.
They can't be doing it under a supervising PT that doesn't know anything about it. So they, or it's a proving your competency question.
I feel like we get into a lot of weeds if we have a blanket statement one way or the other without, having to consider working under an appropriate PT and what have you. It's just a lot more, I think, detail than perhaps we were ready to comment on.
Yeah, it also goes back to the fight that the PTs had with the chiropractors to allow us to do spinal manipulation and not just spinal mobilization. So I would not be comfortable doing spinal manipulation, but I also define mobilization probably in more aggressive terms. So
I think between the chiropractors and PTs, we define it very differently. And yeah, you're right. And the definition kind of is the devil's in the details here, like you're talking about.
It sounds like the answer is it depends. It depends on a lot of different factors.
Is this something we could kick to the next board meeting when the PTAs are here to maybe weigh in on it?
We certainly could do that.
How many of the schools did you hear from, Kathy?
Let's see.
Debbie did it.
Debbie.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5 out of 11. So we could use some additional information. The APTA, when we contact APTA, it's APTA, FSBPT, to try to narrow in on what's really regulatorily being done elsewhere, and then in best practices, from the PT Association, what their belief is, and they have a pretty darn strong statement right there. So maybe we need a little more information on our PTAs to be involved in it.
Well, it looks like Craven Community College teaches it with a mobilization belt. I think if we've only heard from less than half of the PT assistant programs in the state, and 2 of these are teaching it and 3 aren't, that's not enough compelling evidence to me to disallow it.
So if we don't want to make a motion, you can direct the staff to get some more information and bring it back to the next meeting. And we will hopefully have both of our PTA board members with us at that time. And maybe we invite a couple of experts to speak to it.
That would
And
be good.
I have a second. Do we typically try to be consistent with the APTA, or is that not something?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I think, that's sort of a double-edged sword. It's a great question. In one of my infamous John Silverstein things that lives in my head, it's, the APTA doesn't make North Carolina state regulatory policy. And so we have disagreed with APTA. I think it's the aggregate of all of this information together. I just thought it was really interesting, the response that was so strongly worded. I mean, often it's not quite that strongly worded. So I just thought that was interesting. And we do not always agree or see eye to eye on things for sure.
I do like the idea of getting more information and bring it back to the board meeting next time and readdressing it.
Great.
Agreed. Table till the next board meeting.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And direct the staff to get more info. Okay. Next scope of practice question.
This was from me as more of a plea for somebody or more than one somebody's please attend the musculoskeletal ultrasound course that is available through the APTA NC virtual offering. Darn, I was doing so much better at that. And the way that you can register for that is, through those links that I provided with in the section under APTA. So if you want to get back to it, go to the NCPTA and sign up for their virtual APTA NC and sign up for the virtual meeting, and then you can participate in any of those courses. I think that the way it works, and Debbie, I know you've looked into it, some of them are like pre-recorded, pre-done,
Yes.
and you go
Yes.
through like the APTA Learning Center to do them. But I think it would be useful if we could all participate in that. And like I said, the board is able to reimburse you for your time and participation, the registration fees.
Is that for any of the APTA NC courses?
Yeah, in fact, I think it's $50 to do
Yes.
any and all of them that they are offering.
Mhm.
So and there's quite a wide variety of offerings. So, it's an opportunity for a number of things, but this topic keeps coming back up. And I think it would be more helpful if we had more information.
I also believe they have it on the schedule that you have like several months that you can participate.
That's good. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for authorizing board members to participate in that.
Well, you all have authorized the fact that everybody can attend the FSBPT meetings. And because they're not having it live this year, I mean, we have pre-funded it through your vote to approve the budget for you to go to these educational activities. And I think this typically the policy is that, the board can fund you to go to one thing a year. Well, even if you went to the free FSBPT offerings plus the APTA NC offering, it's well below what the board would have spent otherwise, and it's so relevant to regulation that I you all have approved that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to NPTRA and CLEAR.
So just a little word about NCPT. We are members, and if you want to go learn about anything that's going on sort of through NCPT in the really the big wide world of regulation, you can go to the NCPT website. This is their most recent newsletter. But just to let you know, the NCPT 2021 meeting is canceled, but not that any of us were going to wherever in the world that was supposed to be, but they are also allowing everybody worldwide to access these virtual courses that they're putting on. And I'm trying to find where that is. But anyway, it may not be in this newsletter, it may be in the other one, but you can access the same courses that FSBPT is putting on for their kind of virtual annual meeting. And that's what's being offered by NCPT this year. So, take advantage of our membership and participate in those things. And then there's just, sometimes there's interesting articles about what's going on with various things in the world. And COVID is certainly not unique to the United States. It's all of us. So I've got some information about that there. So that's NCPT. And then CLEAR, I don't have any real new updates. CLEAR is that entity that Council for Licensure, Enforcement, and Regulation. This is where I did my investigator training. They offer generalized, like new board member trainings and that sort of thing. And they've got a lot of offerings online. If there's something that you would like to know more in depth about as being a regulator or would like more advanced training, maybe I can help you find something to go to through CLEAR if you'd like to do that too. We don't have any new credentialing agency updates for you today. And then I've included just a few scope of practice questions that I've responded to. I try to put in ones that you guys haven't read before or had seen before. This one, the very first one was about a PTA that was performing outside the scope of practice and just wasn't listening to the PT. And this is a situation in home health where the PT is not always on site. And so, that was a very interesting one. This diagnostic imaging question, I think I probably have posted that in two places. This person is a student at High Point, and I was invited to do a Zoom presentation at High Point. And the faculty member that invited me is really, really invested in the board approving or, supporting changing the Practice Act so that PTs can do imaging. And so this person wanted to know what the board member's specific reasons for not approving that were. And of course, I didn't answer that question that way. I tried to help educate her in understanding how the board is allowed to consider things. And so that was that one. But, we're going to see that come back around again, too. So if you see courses about PTs doing diagnostic imaging, I would love it if a board member would go to those too. The more knowledge base that we have in the group, the better that will be for the board to be able to make good decisions. This one about battlefield acupuncture, the only way to answer that was no, because it has the word acupuncture in it. Right, and while we do not disagree that PTs can do dry needling or understand about, meridians that have potentially the effect on, pain control, that answer just couldn't be yes. The way it was phrased or the way it was put to the board. Title question, this relates to the position statement that Debbie was recommending that we update, and then some questions about evaluations and reevaluations. So, they're always just interesting to see what, what people are struggling with as far as scope of practice questions go. We are at the end, unless we need to do some meetings for the next time, but Madam Chair, if there's any other topic that we need to bring up.
I do not believe there are any other topics. Let's go ahead and set our next calendar schedule for meetings. I
Okay.
think we have December 9th, 2020 already set. In light of what's happening, we will assume that will also be a Zoom meeting.
I think we have to assume that at this point.
Yes. So then we look forward to 2021, March and June of 2021. We go ahead and set these meetings this far ahead of time, hoping to lock that in and have everyone participate and attend. So, Kathy.
So the dates that I've got here on the Zoom, the Wednesdays in March are the 3rd, the 10th, the 17th, 24th, and 31. With the 17th being the very important holiday of St. Patrick's Day and the 31st being the very important holiday of Passover. So we may or may not want to encroach on those dates. Or we could do it on a Thursday, 4th, 11th, 18th, 25th. So these are completely up to the board what they'd like to do. You know, middle of the month tends to work, or kind of not necessarily the first week, but second or third, or, you know, in this case, we've got the 4th week available.
Okay, 10th or the 17th.
Yep.
10th sounds fine.
Anybody have a preference? What'd you say, Jamie?
I said the 10th sounds fine.
Anybody have an objection to March 10th? Hearing,
I concur.
let's set it for March 10th, 2021.
Ooh, where does the time go? Okay.
Hopefully it will be in person.
Wouldn't that be nice?
2021 sounds good.
Yes, it does. Right there. It sounds good. And then June, same thing. You've got options on Wednesdays and Thursdays, 9th or the 16th or 10th or the 17th, you know, or the middle month of the month, unless anybody's got conflict.
I would prefer the 9th if we can.
Right.
June 9th.
Works for me.
June 9th.
Sounds good.
Does anybody have any other business to come before the board today?
Would like to compliment our chair on her timeliness and expeditiousness.
Thank you, David. You owe me a glass of milk.
I will gladly keep my word on that.
Okay. Thank you all for attending today and being so participatory. I also want to give a big shout out to the board staff and executive director for being able to complete their responsibilities, jobs, goals, objectives, even though they're all working remotely and occasionally in the office. Thank you so much for managing all the communication and intricacies and licensure and communication with all the stakeholders out there and all the other things that you all do that we have no idea about.
Mm-hmm. I would like to echo that. Board staff, awesome job.
Absolutely.
I would concur, and I would also like to thank David Nall for getting my laptop, give me a loaner because I decided it was time to go. So I want to thank Dave for doing that in an efficient and very fast major fashion.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay.
And a second.
December.
Okay.
See you guys. Have a good one.
This meeting is adjourned at 2:56, September 2nd. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.